Good Thursday to you, everybody. Income 831. Welcome to, are you ready? Week, boom, bam. 11, not 16, 11. What, 5 weeks to go? Hang in there. You're doing just fine. And speaking of doing, I'm going to be doing some drinking of this coffee. Mm. What cup do we have here? Oh, yes. Toulouse. Favorite? No. A city that I most that I certainly love in the south of France. Home to the beginning of the First Crusade, very important period in Western history, and not what it's often portrayed that is the First Crusade, because the call for help came from what was left of the Roman Empire in the East due to the expansive, militant, marauding policies and behaviors of Muslims. Sound familiar? Just saying. And the cathedral there in Toulouse, Church of Saint Stephan, Cathedral of Saint Etienne. You can find not only the altar at which the Pope at the time, Urban II, preached the First Crusade, but because it became a center for crusaders, those warriors going over to fight Muslims and then coming back, there is in the church a piece of the cross of Christ and a piece of the crown of thorns. So, you ever find yourself in that neck of the woods that is in southern France, go to Toulouse. Mm. Okay, now that's much better. Here am I, your sufficiently caffeinated communication instructor. Let's take a look at what we're going to be doing this week, and then we will talk about what you did last week. So this week, I've given you something, a little different. We're taking a break from our other readings, and I've given you the opportunity to read some of the research that I did into the use of and attitudes about social media, because when you read the prevaricators, the promoters, the sellers of social media. And by the way, this is a blanketly true statement for all technological innovations. Oh, isn't it going to be wonderful? And oh, it will transform things. Then oh, it will be just like we never could have lived without it. Whether that's Schmidt and Cohen um, or others, that is a typical theme. And it's for the coming of the telegram, the telegraph, radio, electricity, television, movies, the internet, and the rhetoric tends to roll on and on and on. So back in 2013, reading Schmidt and Cohen and others, I was hearing all of this glowing praise and very expansive predictions about what social media was going to do for the world, and how it was going to be the savior of the poor, downtrodden folks of the planet. And I thought, okay, why don't we ask them, the poor, distressed peoples of the world? And I happen to be working in Iraq a lot. And so I was in and out of refugee camps as well as other places. And I designed the study to first and foremost find out if distressed peoples even bother with social media. If they do, what do they do with it? And then doing whatever it is they do with it, how does it make them feel? Do they see it as a tool that, as you listen to Schmidt and Cohen, that they just poof, they see the endless possibilities of this application to solve their most pressing problems. And in this case, their pressing problem was, how do I get out of this refugee camp and get back to my home? So I'm giving you an opportunity to take a look at that study. There's no link here in the module. You have to go to the Region Online Library, and if you just look up, my name, Gardner Jeff, Strangers to the village, social media usage among the displaced Assyrian Christians in Ankawa. This is essentially a region near the city of Erbil, but Iraq. You should find it now. That you're gonna find it with two listings. One is as if you're there at Regent, you want to check out and look at the print copy. Look for the listing that says available online. That's the one you want to go to. Okay, so read the introduction, chapter 5, and the appendix C, and then you take it from there. All right. I hope that you enjoy what you read, and I hope you find it informative, and some real life reporting examination of the use of the social media application by a large number of distressed peoples. And this isn't representative of all distressed peoples. So is it absolute external validity? No, I don't make that claim. But I think there is external validity in terms of sort of the general conclusions that I come to. But I won't spoil anything for you. Okay. You should have turned in your technology tool that was due on the 25th. I will be grading those. Probably, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to them to the weekend. This is a busy time of the year for me. There are people defending their dissertations, and everybody needs to get in before the March 3rd, who are at that stage, get into the system before March 31st, which is just a couple of days from now. Okay, so I can see there are a couple of you who have not done your technology tool assignment. Please make sure that you do that, all right, and get that in. If you have any questions about it, ask, all right, and I'll be happy to answer. All right, so that's what we're going to be doing this week. I hope you find the reading interesting. Okay. Let's take a look at questions from last week, what you said, and see if there's anything that we can add to them. All right. Question number 1. Stopping terrorism has been a primary strategic goal of the U.S. foreign policy based on Chapter 5. What is the U.S. doing poorly, and what is it doing well regarding the use of new technologies to stop terrorism? Excuse me. Which has become, a difficult proposition in an environment, Internet, World Wide Web, in which there's this strong advocacy for open borders, if you will, just free flow of information around, and minimal regulation and censorship. Okay, well, bad guys use that too. I think that's actually question number 2, not question number 1. I may have inadvertently just jumped ahead, but let's just take question number 2. Okay, and then we'll go back to question number 1 here in just a second. Okay, Charlene, you're last. Let's take you first. Schmidt-Cohen addressed what countries are doing well or poorly in terms of terrorism and new technology. State the U.S. is doing well with intelligence gathering and surveillance. This is because the vastly improved ability to collect and analyze data will allow American agencies to track terrorist networks more effectively than ever before. Okay. That's true that we are able to track them, but the question becomes, can we actually do anything about them? Kai, what did you say? According to Schmidt-Cohen, U.S. is doing well by using advanced technologies and data systems to find terrorists. They collect information from phones, computers, social media to catch threats early. True again. Now, this of course raises the question, can we have it both ways? Can we have a state in which you're free to use these technologies with the expectation that what you do and say is private? Because we have had significant erosions of our privacy because of terrorism. I mean, and I'm serious about this. I'm only half tongue in cheek. Okay, what am I about to say? Take what goes on in airports. When and how did it become okay to just pretend that the Fourth Amendment doesn't exist? You just throw it out. Whoop! And whenever you step into this space, this is a magical land in which your constitutional rights are suspended and you can be searched top to bottom, inside and out. Anything that you're carrying can be searched, and in fact usually is. Because what exactly? Now you might be saying, well, duh, 9/11, Dr. Gardner. Yeah, I understand that. That's not my point. I mean, terrorists have used vehicles to carry out heinous acts, like parking a van full of explosives under one of the World Trade Centers before they flew the building into them back in the 90s. But, law enforcement they don't have the right just to stop a random car and say, well, you're driving, so you could be a terrorist, so we got to look in there. Now, okay, this happens. All right, so if you saw a question like this on a test, what would I be looking for? I would be looking for you to say a little bit about, how the country is doing, or what they are doing. Okay, now let's go back to question number 1. I jumped ahead, sorry. Do you agree that social media are substantially changing the nature of revolutions, both at home and abroad? Please support your answer by providing a link to academic research. Now, especially as you develop your papers, here's a critical distinction that I want you to keep in mind. Yeah, it's okay to cite periodical news postings, okay, when you're writing a paper. But you have to remember what the difference between something that you find in a news piece and something that you find in an academic piece is. News pieces can be useful to express that there is something going on. They're not really well representative of how significant that thing is because, hey, excuse me, surprise, news outlets tend to overemphasize the significance of a story to, guess what? Get you to read the story. So they're not a good measure as to whether or not the thing that they are highlighting as happening is of any real significance. So don't use them like that. Look to data-driven studies to find out if the event that's being noted, is of any significance, or is it just, hype on a news site. Okay, Austin, let's see what you say. I believe that social media is playing a significant role in changing the nature of revolutions in today's society, most notably Schmidt and Cohen. Note the relationship between revolution and political turnover. I believe that in the most recent presidential election, we have seen social media lead a revolution, a change of administrations. That's, excuse me, that's an interesting point. Okay, and you cite a work by Pinto, Bickham, and Salskers et al. Tracking the 2024 U.S. presidential election chatter on TikTok public multimodal database. Okay, good point. All right, so yeah, there is some significance out there. Question number 3. Schmidt and Cohen suggest that cyber warfare will overtake conventional warfare. Do you agree? Now, for those of you, those hawkish sorts among you, particularly what's going on now in the Middle East could be germane to your answer. Let's see what you said. The Trinity. Honestly, I don't fully agree that cyber warfare will replace conventional warfare, but it absolutely is becoming just as important. Cyber attacks can disrupt infrastructure, steal intelligence, weaken a country without a single shot being fired. Excuse me. Which I can see making them incredibly attractive as a first move in ongoing tactics. That said, physical force is still going on, such as territory, resources, power, utilities and power ultimately get decided on the ground. Exactly. What I think feels more realistic is a hybrid future where cyber warfare leads to softening targets, conventional warfare follows if needed. And that seems to be, excuse me, I've got a little bit of a cough. That seems to be where we're at with the war in Iran. That although their, military hardware has been significantly eliminated. The country, although, there are reports that they are talking to us, shows no significant sign of giving up because there's not a physical presence anywhere, and they can, stay sheltered in place and weather the missile storm. We'll see what we see. Question number 4. In your opinion, but drawing from your readings this week, does new media technology help or hinder conflict resolutions among competing groups within nations like Jews and Palestinians, or Americans and Iranians? And I meant, specifically here, are we seeing any tension between Americans and Iranians that live in the United States? Maya, you're last. Let's take you first. The effect of new media technology will depend on how people utilize it. If used positively with the intention of conflict resolution, compromise, and peacemaking, then it can help resolve conflict. Social media connects people and should broaden users' perspectives by exposing them to diverse cultures, lifestyles, ideas. It can also have the opposite effect. Interconnectedness can be used to spread hate and prejudice. If used with malintent, then of course it can cause harm. Okay. Certainly true enough. And, the answer is fine. Here's something I want everybody to be aware of. While it's true that how you use a thing determines the impact, okay, as savvy communication scholars that you are becoming, you become aware that not everybody, but that central tendency that, you take the bell curve and you take like 60% of it and start from straight down the middle and you expand out. The central tendency where people and the interface with technology is concerned, in that central tendency is often found the use of the technology by the people being driven by the technology itself. So what do I mean by that? Okay. Handheld device. Now we know from a lot of research that we pay most attention to, or significant attention to, and give thought and significance to things in our hand. We are tool makers. Our let me see if I can get this in frame. Our ideal focal point is about right there. That is how our eyes work. And we know that if you put a news story with some sort of a threatening character to it on a screen, and you put the very same news story on a phone, and you have the two sets of users and you poll them, the people who look at it on the screen will rate it as less concerning, less threatening than the people who look at it on the phone. Why? Because the nature of the device, handheld in this case, drives how it is that the device impacts the users, and the impact of the device on the user drives how it gets used. I mean, it happened extremely rarely when print was widely available, newspapers, at the same time that automobiles were becoming available. It happened, but rarely. There would be somebody driving an automobile while reading a newspaper. Extremely rare. What is not extremely rare are people driving an automobile while they're staring at a handheld phone, which you may have seen. I see a lot of it in my town. What does that tell you? The device is shaping how it's used. That is, it shapes our behavior. So it's not merely an open-ended question about whether people will use it well or use it not. Some of it, that is how it's used, comes from the nature of the platform itself. Okay, keep that in mind. And that's, that study is called Media Effects or Media Ecology. Okay, if that's something that interests you. Let's see. Let's take somebody else. Cedra. A new media technology both helps and hinders conflicts resolutions among nations. Okay. Um, Let me finish your answer, then I'll go back to it. Media technology can spread awareness and desires solidarity among nations, which can help conflict resolution. However, media technology can also spread information, both rooted in hate and intended to spread false information, which can cause further division. All right. That's true. But as you develop as scholars, develop the habit of taking a position. And look, I mean, sometimes you're going to make mistakes. I make mistakes, but develop the habit of analyzing enough information that you can take a definitive stance one way or the other instead of saying, well, and I'm not making fun of anybody here, okay, in my sort of animation. Well, it could be this or it could be this. It's both. No. More often than not, it's not both. It's more the one than the other. Get used to making determinations, because that's what you're going to get paid for, because you're the doctors. All right. Keep that in mind. Okay. I threw out a bonus question to you with some trepidation. Not that I have any complaints about giving bonus questions, but because the article was rather long. Actually, I think, if you take away how squunched and columnized, that's not really a word, but I'm going to use it, and you just copied it and stuck it on a regular size page, I don't think it would be that long. Okay. But the article is by the CEO, Dario Amodei, of the company Anthropic AI, called Machines of Loving Grace. And specifically, I wanted to know, what did you think about the author's predictions and promises for AI? Having finished Schmidt and Cohen, and having lived in and through the advent of social media, what I'm looking for here in this one, and yeah, this might be fair game for an exam, is based on the comparisons of the two, and you start with, did the promises of change for the good, as proffered by Schmidt and Cohen, materialize with the widespread use of social media? And if you read the book, Schmidt and Cohen, they spend very little time with potential downsides, right? But there certainly have been potential downsides to the use of social media. Okay, so what I wanted you to do is read this on AI, because this is the next emergent new technology that that we find ourselves with. So the emergence of AI is sort of like, this isn't apples to apples, but fruit to fruit. It's sort of like the emergence of the internet, and you're getting all sorts of predictions about what it will and won't do for us. So let me see of those who did it. Alicia, I have a ton of hope for the author's predictions and promises in the article Machines of Loving Grace. The risks and rewards of powerful AI occupies a shared space in what is a fundamentally positive future if everything goes mostly right. And that is the that is the if, isn't it? If everything goes mostly right. Okay. And then you list areas: biology and health, neuroscience and mind, economic development, poverty, peace, governance, work, and meaning. Is educated, I guess, at least capture the flavor of what could happen if everything goes wrong. AI is already current what are called outliers, both outliers in the phenomenon. And if you don't know, what's an outlier is something that's happening but really has no significant effect, has no statistically significant effect on the phenomenon. So are there outliers in, currently, are there outliers in how AI is impacting all of these areas? Yes. Yeah, Is AI already improving the quality of human life in these areas? Based on the evidence, I'm not so sure. And that's not to say everything that AI is doing is enslaving us and making things horrible. No, I just think thus far, based on the data and the evidence, AI is not all that in a bag of chips, as the British would say. Okay. Let's see. So what do you say? The predictions that we could see reduced time frames for biology, health solutions, disease eradication, economic and poverty. I'm not as confident in short-term turnaround and peace governance work, meaning because of overarching human factors, organizing, decentralizing, defining meaning, and so forth. For me, this is a parallel discussion in the new digital age about the benefits of technology bringing us such harms that it entails. People are the X factor in the equation. Indeed, they are. Indeed, they are. Okay. Someone who took a contrary view. That would be Carolyn. I always do extra credit. Okay, good on you, Carolyn. Yes, I think there's a lot of great aspects to AI. Like I said in Q4 this week, it's not so much a tool that matters, but how those using it. Let's see my previous discussion. Our fight is not against people on earth. We are fighting against rulers and authorities and powers of this world of darkness. We're fighting against spiritual powers of evil in the heavenly places. This is from Ephesians. CEO said 5 categories of AI he's most cited about are biology and health, neuroscience, mental health, economic development, poverty, peace, government, working, and meaning. I think the first 2 are strongest, but still iffy. For example, my sister is a nurse and relies on ChatGPT for a lot of her input about medical issues, and I feel she's often turning off her brain and taking the easy button. Okay. However, I'm willing to believe there are still scientists and health professionals who will use AI in valid ways, applying their own brains also, that could potentially change people's lives. On that note, right? Maybe I'll throw this out as extra credit another time, or maybe not. I don't know. You should spend a little bit of time, each and every one of you, not Carolyn, just reading up on first of all, what is AI? And then secondly, especially in the forms that you encounter it, which is the chat bot, what is that? How does it work? I mean, I'll give you a little preview. It's called large language models. It's a type of AI. So AI is up here as a heading. Then you have these different types. Large language models is the type that you're familiar with as a chat bot or a source bot. Source, not source bot, source bot. Freudian slip. And the way that a large language model works is that you give it a query, and then it scans an enormous number of databases to find words that it has an, I'm trying to think how to explain this. It has an algorithm. It has an equation built into it in which the words are assigned sequential priority, and the program figures out which words have the highest probability of needing to be placed in the following order. And that starts with just grammatical order. Articles before the noun or the pronoun. The dog, not dog, the. Okay. But then it goes a little deeper and takes a look at a database or databases to find a logical string of words to respond to your query. But here's the catch. One of the problems that is already emerging in large language model AI systems is they take up a tremendous amount of power to function. And they take up a tremendous amount of server space to function. And that problem is multiplying faster than it can be solved. Why? Because the amount of stuff that's getting dumped out onto the World Wide Web keeps increasing, and therefore the computing power and the electrical power and servers, they generate a lot of heat. So you not only need the power to run the servers, then you need the power to run the air conditioners to keep the servers from overheating. So the servers gobble up a lot of power. The air conditioning gobbles up a lot of power. The computing chips have a sort of a max. They can't really go faster. There's a ceiling, and you reach a point. The large language model reaches a point, I should say, where it cannot access all of the available data out there. And what is the default then? It simply shifts to access only a certain type from certain sources. And you need to know, as savvy communicators that are working in a digital space, the internet, that is the connections of servers and wires and wireless connection, is not one uniform thing. It's more proper to speak of internets. And some of them overlap, some of them connected, and some of them are completely cut off. Some internets, that is these systems, are in countries. Iran is one, Turkey is another, that before the information gets to the user, it's all passed through a very specific state-run filter. So users in the country don't see things, and they don't know what they don't see. So the large language model can't just, throw out this, let me scoop up all the information from the whole world. First of all, because it's running into power and computing problems. And secondly, because all of these centers of information are not all uniformly connected. What's the point? The point is then the default of the large language model AI of the program is to only look at certain databases. And here's the problem. What if there are mistakes in those databases? Because the data in there is human generated, and the AI doesn't know the difference between kind and cruel, accurate and inaccurate. And we're already seeing databases, large language models accessing databases and coming up with some pretty wild stuff. So what Carolyn is getting on about here is more of a potential problem than many of us realize. Okay, let's see. I appreciate also that he says, I think it's very likely a mistake to believe that the tasks you undertake are meaningless simply because an AI could do them better. And I think that's a good point. I recently confided in the same sister that sometimes I feel like I don't fit into the world around me. And the next day she sent me a ChatGPT script straight from the machine. I'll laugh out loud. That was spiritual encouragement for people who don't feel like they fit in. She said, I thought about changing it a little and pretending it was me, but Chatty, one presumes this is what she's named her AI chatbot, ChatGPT, said it better. I could have squeezed my phone to shatter and thrown it across the room. And I take that to mean that you were not happy. Okay. All right. Thank you for all of you who participated in this extra credit. Look, I'm not a Luddite. I don't go around smashing technology, but as communication professionals, I want you to understand the hype that is just built in to the deployment of a new technology, because those deploying it have a financial stake in as many people adopting it. But many people adopting it does not make a good thing. Okay, I mean, if there hadn't been a split between the north and the south of the country, and the north was like, oh yeah, you're right. Why didn't we think of that? I guess slavery from sea to shining sea. Uniform adoption, not a good idea. All right, so be skeptical when purveyors of the technology are telling you all about the wonders of the technology. Take a look at it. Start thinking about media ecology. That is how the nature and the physical form of the thing might change people's behavior. Like, are you going to get people sitting right next to each other? I mean, right next to each other, and communicating in a mediated space. Instead of just talking, they're texting away with each other, or they're inside of a game interacting as characters rather than interacting, I don't know, just a clapping game with each other. Be discerning as to whether or not it's all good. All right. Okay, everybody, that's my time. Thank you so very, very much. And for those of you who've reached out to me and let me know that you have, certain issues and things that you're struggling with and ask for prayers, that you have them. All right. I will get to your technology tool again, probably starting next week. If you haven't turned it in, please turn it in. And remember, until then, I'm thinking about you, and especially those who have asked me. I am praying for you. And until next week, I will see you on Canvas. Bye-bye. God bless.